Alrighty, everyone. Welcome back to the Well-Rounded Wealth Podcast. We are on episode number 23, and we have a special guest this episode. We knew him back in high school. Was always a great guy, brought a bunch of energy, and welcome, Vaughan Hall. How are you doing?
Hey, guys. Hello. Greetings.
Hi. Hi, Vaughan.
Hi.
So real quickly, Vaughn, we kind of reconnected through our social media on Well-Rounded Wealth. We started posting some reels in like August that time, September time. And you were kind of responding to the reels and like DM the account, and we DM'd you back. And we were just kind of reconnecting a little bit. So we thought it would be really cool to have you on just based on your experiences, your kind of unique path where you've been in the last 4 years since we knew you in high school. So honestly, from your perspective, what drew you to us? Like, what made you want to reach out to us? I'm curious.
Well, I mean, obviously I liked a lot of what you guys were saying. And I mean, it was popping up in my feed, like I was like, just scrolling through the reels and I'd like, oh, I know these guys, Really it comes down to you guys taking a chance and trying to, do something that's a little bit outside the ordinary and taking a chance on yourselves and saying, hey, why not? Why not me? Why can't I do this? And I thought that was pretty inspirational. And so as someone who's, tried to go off the beaten path a little bit and do my own thing, I always like it when people, encourage me and say, oh, wow, like, he's trying something different. He's trying something new. And to see you guys do that was so inspirational, motivational, and like I don't know. I wanted to support because it was cool to see. So
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I guess, why don't we do this real quick? Why don't you give us a quick minute spiel of where you went from high school to where you are now and kind of give people a little background about you?
Yeah, because we knew you in high school. So, yeah, roughly what's happened since like we last saw each other senior year of high school.
So I went to Clemson right after high school. That didn't really work out too well for me. COVID happened and online classes are not my thing. And so I kind of switched some things up and I was like really, I think everybody had, a lot of time during COVID to think, okay, what am I really doing with my life? Like what, you have a lot of time to yourself and things kind of slowed down. So you look around and I didn't know what I was going to do. So, and I hated being cooped up. So I worked a little bit, saved a bunch, and bought a Harley, and then just like went across the country and learned a lot about myself, learned a lot about what I want to do with my life. And, not everything, but definitely eye-opening on certain things. And so I eventually, through a bunch of trial and errors with different things, I found blacksmithing and fell in love with it, and I've just been, putting my heart and soul into it ever since then. So now I'm like 3 years into that, well, 2.5 now, and it's been one of the best decisions I've made in my life. It's almost like a calling in a way,
Yeah, that's incredible. And
Yeah.
a lot to unpack there, but I want to get into what made this idea come to fruition with, all right, I'm going home, I'm saving, and I'm buying a Harley and driving across the U.S.
I don't know anyone our age that's done that. We this is not something we could just gloss over.
Was it a movie? Did you see that like end cutscene or like I'm gonna be that guy?
So I was going through a lot of like personal stuff at the time. Like right after I kind of, decided that I wasn't going to go back to Clemson and I needed to kind of restructure certain things in my life. And I'd kind of gotten away from certain friends that I didn't really think were best for me. And so I was kind of lost in a lot of ways, like just alone, and I got really into like self-improvement and like listening to different just people that I admire, and one of the guys his name's Henry Rollins.
Okay.
He was one of the lead singers to a band that I really like.
Okay.
And then he started his own band in the '90s, and I've actually seen him do like speaking, like one of his talks on like his speaking tour, because he's done that for a long time. I got to see him in Charlotte, but not over the time. But I was watching this video on YouTube, and he was talking about his travels throughout, his life. And he had this motto. He said, "If you want to know, you've got to go." Right? And he would do things like take a backpack and fly to some random country, because he's been to like over 100 countries, and then just get off the plane and just start walking. No plan, nothing, just like, all right, I'm just gonna, hop in a taxi and just say, I want 5 minutes that way, please. Get out, start walking, and just, live there for 3 weeks and then, fly home. And, he had the financial means to do that, but even still, the more messed up a country, the more he wanted to go and everything. And during 2020, that was during the height of the election. And I've always been interested in politics.
Yeah, Vaughan hates podcasts. I just said Vaughan hates podcasts.
No, I love podcasts. Anyway, so I was like, all right, well, I want to go see America during the 2020 election, and then also there was some things I was, reading and also listening to about like this idea of like a rite of passage, and how we don't really have that in our society. The idea of like a young man or woman kind of goes out into the forest and has to fend for himself for a little bit. And then once he fights off the wolves and, survives for a month, whatever, he's welcomed back into the society as a man, And so there was also something kind of romantic about that too, that I was thinking about with it. But I don't know. I wanted to do something that I didn't know that I could do, but proved to myself that I could do it. And, and a lot of people have done various versions of that, like some people, like yourself, do some crazy, like Patrick, I'm going to go do some wild physical feat, like that. Maybe that was like your kind of version of it. I don't know. I can't speak for you, but yeah, it was something along those lines. So.
Yeah. Okay, I want to ask some logistics about this. So, like, one, like, what was your track? What states did you hit? And like, how did you? Did you sleep at hotels, parks? I'm just curious what the logistics were of your trip.
So I bought a 2016 Harley Davidson Softail Deluxe, which is not the biggest one, but it's a pretty big bike. I mean, it's 800 pounds. It's got a 1600 cc engine. Like it's a big bike. And I basically just loaded that thing up with camping stuff. And I just hit the highway and just stopped from state park to state park to national park to state park, and just zigzagged my way off of, through every state south of the Mason-Dixon line. Because I went in November. November and December was cold. I wasn't going that high. The highest I got was Moab, and that was freezing.
That place is cool.
But, yeah, I was about, like, I spent about $50 a day. That was my budget. That I had saved, and there was a lot of tuna and protein bars, and I wasn't there to
Sounds like my daily life now, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but that was including my place to stay. I had to figure out a place to stay, eat, and get gas, all for $50 a day, and that's kind of how I did it the whole way. And I usually stopped at like a really cheap, crappy motel like every 4 days. 5 days, and showered and got a good night's sleep. But yeah, I was roughnecking it for sure.
How long was the whole trip?
It was a little over a month and a half. It was about a month and a half. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Wow.
So did you get all the way to the West Coast?
Yeah, I got all the way to Death Valley, California.
Okay.
But everyone, like by that time, it was interesting seeing like how COVID had affected different parts of the country and different rates, because when I was in the East Coast at that time in November, like, we were at the height, like everybody knew somebody who had gotten it, and it was like everybody was locked down, like it was serious. But by the time I got to, and I was in Arkansas, Kansas, or actually I didn't go to Kansas, but Colorado, like Texas, like these places are so spread out and they're in the middle of the country that, it was still, our version of February, like, oh, there's this virus, like, I don't think it's real, all this other stuff. Like, but anyways, when I got to California, it had really started to hit that place big time. Yeah. And everyone was mass exiting the state. So as I was going to California, I was just seeing like blocked highways the whole way, like back roads blocked, everything blocked, going to the direction I just came from. And I was thinking to myself, like, I got to Death Valley. I was like, you know what? I made it to California. I'll come back and do a California trip another time. I don't want to have to, get stuck or, deal with stuff from the craziness of that state. So
who knows what goes on out there?
Yeah, exactly. It's not America.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's probably a wise decision. I've been to Death Valley actually. I did an RV trip when I was 16 years old.
Sweet.
Yeah, with my uncle and a couple of my cousins, and then my mom and sister. We were out there periodically because it was like a whole 4-week trip. We each could only do like a couple weeks. But we saw Death Valley. We kind of were above the Mason-Dixon line, so it's almost like you and I have each done the different parts of the country.
Sweet.
But yeah, it was pretty cool. I would have loved I think the biggest difference that you probably got out of it versus me is, one, you're a little older. I was only 16, and two, I was not in charge. You had that agency to be making your own decisions. You were driving the bike. I was just a kid in the RV. No, I wasn't calling any of the shots.
Along for the ride. One thing, so going back to Henry Rollins and that quote, if you want to know, you've got to go. I love that, and it's almost like some version of fuck around and find out.
Yeah,
I think with a little bit more positive connotation on it. You got to go discover. And I think that along with your parrot of, you have to go kind of discover something for yourself and grow. It's like you need to give yourself the evidence that you can go and hop a hurdle. So taking that kind of thought away from the trip, how have you incorporated, or how have you continued to incorporate that kind of quote into what you do on a daily basis now?
Well, I think a big part of it is what I've been, at least my choice to decide to, start doing art, and taking that path of my artistic and, creative side. It's always throughout my life, I always loved making art. I was, a lot of people didn't even know that about me, throughout high school. But I mean, I was big into the art, if people in the arts classes and in the art, the visual arts at Charlotte Catholic knew very well that I was into art. But a lot of people didn't really know that about me, and so it was kind of something that I kind of kept hidden from people, and what, and it was always in the back of my mind, what would it be like if I decided to, actually go for this? Because it was always this unpractical thought, oh yeah, you can't really do that. Oh, that would be nice, to go do that, but no way. And I decided to take the chance and say, you know what, fuck around and find out. Let's see, let's see what I can do. So, yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely say, if the two people I wouldn't say jealous of, but I admire, is artist and musician, because those type of people just do it for the purity of creating something cool that they can put back out.
Yeah.
And I just don't think my mind works that way. I'm I'm a lot more type A, logical, and
depends on the artist and musician you're talking about. Let's play a little devil's advocate. I think there are plenty chasing the fame and glory.
Oh, well, yeah. But I mean, if you get into it, I think maybe once you fuck around and find out, oh shit, the fame and glory stuff is cool too. But I think a lot of people do or just have that message they want to get out and can express it in that way.
Yeah. I don't want to jump the gun too much, but one of the biggest things I learned during my time in Japan was something along those lines.
Yeah, wait, back up. When'd you go to Japan?
Yeah, sorry. My bad.
No, you're good. You're good.
So, at my school, we are required to do a internship, like about 270 hours of on the job work in our trade before we graduate. So each summer we have to do 270 hours of work. And I sent a Hail Mary DM to this guy in Japan. His name's Yasuyuki Mori. He's a sculptor, a metal sculptor. He's also done a lot with glass work, and his wife is also an accomplished sculptor. And he's out in Kyoto, and I just sent him a direct message and say, hey, like, would you be interested in having me work for you for a summer? And I just need a place to stay and food to eat, and that's it. I'll work. I don't need to get paid. And we talked for a little bit. At first, I think he was like, yeah, sure, yeah, you'll come here for sure. Yeah, like no way. Like that was his idea. Like I think he was happy to have me, but he didn't think that. I think a lot of Westerners, talk a lot about, oh yeah, let me come to Japan and work for you, and then they never show up. So. But after a while of me, continuously talking to him over a span of months, finally I got the okay from him, and I talked to my school, and my school found a scholarship for me to pay for my plane ticket, which was absolutely amazing. And yeah, and I made it all the way to Japan. So,
Dude, yeah, that's incredible.
2 months.
That is so cool.
Yeah, that's wild. That's awesome. All right, so what did
Japanese
you learn?
Blacksmithing.
Yeah, what? So wow, you've had a couple cool apprenticeships here.
Yeah, there's another guy that
you
I
fucked around and found out.
Yeah, well, one of the things we might talk about was interesting people, and I have a fellow that we'll talk about that I later, but he's just a guy that I worked for up in the mountains of Boone. That was probably the most interesting person I've ever met. So I've had the luck to have been able to work for some really, really cool people. So
yeah, it sounds like it. So I mean, going back to Japan, you were about to tell us a lesson, and what? Well, one, I guess, just walk us through that whole experience while you were actually there, the culture behind it, people, and then what were some of the lessons you took away from it? Because I mean, I know there are a lot of mirroring thoughts between the Japanese and U.S. culture in terms of how they work and stuff, but I'm sure it's very different on the more metalworking art side.
Sure. So there's a lot of really interesting things about Japanese work culture that's very different than America. I think they're more like us than we are to the Europeans in terms of, we work a lot more, we take work home, all that kind of stuff, like long hours, things like that, hard work. But they're one of the most unique cultures that I've ever experienced. I mean, I've been through Europe and stuff. I haven't been through Asia or Africa or, anywhere else, but that's a very, very unique culture. But one of the reasons that brought me out there was, one, I loved the guy's work. I'd seen him on Instagram, and I was like, wow, like this, I love his design. I love his contemporary and refined mixed with, the grunginess of blacksmithing, like the hard, he really, makes every piece, it's not cut and fabricated and, things like that. So, there was the attraction to his work, but also my fascination with Japan comes from, reading things like the Book of Five Rings, by Miyamoto Musashi, and the concepts of like ikigai, like what you enjoy, what you can be paid for, what the world needs, and there's one more. Shoot. But anyways, it's just their philosophies on finding your place in the world, and then when you find that thing, chase it with everything that you have, kind of thing.
Have you read the book Ichigo Ichi?
No, I haven't.
I know that's on my list of ones to read, but it's all these Japanese philosophies of kind of what you were talking about, like what you can put out to the world or what you get into the world. The same, basically Japanese philosophy. So
Yeah.
I was just curious.
Yeah, totally. It's I was just fascinated with all those things. Prosperity, peace, tranquility, their whole Zen mindset. It's not, there is no work-life balance in Japan. Work is life, so you better, do something that you can do for your life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I know Yasu and Minami. I mean, they work so hard. They put so much time into their work, and they were I mean, the Japanese philosophy was a huge part of wanting to go there.
Do you agree with it based on your experience? Do you think it's a healthy, but maybe not for everyone, for you, did you think that philosophy was a healthy approach to your everyday life?
Well, see, the thing is they're in America with blacksmithing. One of the things they had to teach me was to slow down, and everything a lot of the stuff I'm learning is like, you got to make money. Money is God in America in a lot of ways, and it's just not that way in Japan. So in that way, it was really good because it was more focused on the craft rather than how many can you make, how quickly, and then how does that match your overhead and all that other stuff. You know what I mean? Like, how can you run a business? And they're, while business is important for them, it's more about getting it right, and it's more about the focus on the craft. So in that way, I took a ton from it. Learning to slow down, learning to make sure that every single little detail is correct. That kind of stuff was really really influential on me. And then also, they worked long hours. They worked, they didn't work they worked weekends. They don't have a weekend like we do. They don't really take sick days. They don't take vacation. I mean, but at the same time, at 3:00 when it was summertime, we went to go get ice cream.
Yep.
Like that's when we got there. It wasn't, you can take a walk. You can take smoke break. Whatever you want. Like they're while they were constantly working, they took a lot of breaks. They took a lot of time for themselves to learn and to learn, but also to just kind of decompress and then get back to work and then not work and get back to work. And as your energy kind of ebbs and flows, so does your how often you're working. So it's just a different way of life. I think I definitely learned a lot from it. Do I want to emulate it perfectly? Absolutely not. I'm an American. I grew up in America. There's a lot of things that I learned from a child that they're just a part of me. But also, I mean, getting that experience of seeing how different they are was incredibly influential. So yeah, I agree with it.
Yeah, I've found that I kind of like working in that way because it's a lot more liberating than having this strict timeline of when you're allowed to work or when it's socially acceptable to work versus when you're supposed to rest. Like, I work the best early in the morning and then later at night, like not middle of the day, my head's wherever. And same thing with the weekends. Like, just because society tells you that the weekend is traditional time to rest doesn't mean you necessarily have to take that time to rest. And that's just other people's thoughts being impressed upon you. Like, I mean, it was probably in the past century that this term, the weekend, came up because, actually, I think it was Ford. Henry Ford.
Yeah, that's right.
He started giving his employees weekends to improve their, I guess, perception of working. Yeah, productivity and perception of working for him. So 100 years ago, a weekend wasn't a thing. People just did what they knew to do and what they enjoyed. And it was more when we got into this big capitalist industrial society that was starting to get created. And for some industries, that makes a ton of sense where you have that type of labor to kind of increase that productivity, efficiency. But for someone like you, I feel that's like if someone told you, hey, Vaughn, you have to start working on your metal at 9 and you can't stop, or you have to stop at 5, you'd be like, dude, I want to go work on my metal at 12 a.m. in the morning. Like, I'm feeling it. Like, I want to go create this art or something like that. I mean, that could be.
Is that what you do at Vaughan, 12 a.m.?
I'm not supposed to
he's
use
just
the
hammering.
studio outside of school hours.
I see. What you described to me, it sounded like hard work, but a lack of stress and anxiety compared to what I'm used to. It kind of, like, yes, so you'll be able to take walks, or you guys went and got ice cream at 3 p.m. I was like, oh, but they're still working though. They're still working hard. And they're doing it every day, but it almost sounded like there was more of a balance of. It didn't sound like there was a lot of stress, but it did still sound like there was a lot of hard work because of the passion for the craft.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we were working hard for sure. They work incredibly hard, and when it's like I said, they don't take days off. Like, I mean, I remember Uyasu was sick one day, and he still put the time in. He wasn't going to miss work. That was important to him, and that's important to who he is, and so he was going to get his stuff done regardless of how he felt. And that was super admirable, at least, for him to see him push through stuff like that. And I'm not wired like that. I was feeling sick after some sushimi, so I took the day off. But I think for them, they were like, oh my God, he's not coming to work. He's sick. He must be like on his deathbed, Yeah. And I didn't realize, like, that was just a cultural difference. So I didn't understand, like, like they just have a different approach to sick days than I do. But yeah.
I'm curious, when you say work hard, because I've sort of found this, do you mean work hard as in hard being the amount of time that you put in per day or per week, or the actual work itself?
Being productive.
Okay. Like continuous hours of productive work.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, if you're not being productive, why work?
Yep. Or like, why work on a non-productive thing just to say that you're working?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. So, I mean, I had an office job for a little bit, and so much of my time, sometimes I'd just be sitting there and, like, I'd be so bored with what I was doing, and I'd realize, like, 15 minutes, I haven't done anything.
Mm-hmm.
That 15 minutes could have been a walk where I kind of cleared my head a little bit, and then I get back, and then boom, when I'm sitting down at my desk, I'm busting my ass. I'm really, like, typing away, I'm working, whatever it is. And so I think that's kind of my idea. It's like, if I'm welding something together, I'm not spacing off. I'm not, I'm focused. I'm very focused. I'm productive. I'm getting this done. I'm figuring out this problem. I'm figuring out how to put this thing together. I'm doing some drafting. I'm, whatever it is. That's kind of what I mean by hard work. Really focused, dialed in. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that definition of it, and it's something that is so not evident in our society today, because I think people associate hard work with the amount of time that they are spending on whatever they're or the amount of time they're spending on where they're supposed to be. But 15 minutes of responding to emails is not as productive as actually working on the most important problem that, whether it's a company or a project, needs your focus and attention on right then and there.
Sure. And, and that's part of that's my understanding. I'm not speaking, a lot of what I'm saying, I'm not speaking for the Japanese culture in any way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
This is my perception of what certain things I saw, and then also my own understanding of things, based on things I've read. I just want to make that very clear because I cannot speak for a whole culture. Like,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Understand that, listeners.
Yes, please.
The
Please.
disclaimer has been clear.
Yeah. Yes. Big disclaimer.
Vaughan Hall's not getting canceled today. Not on our watch.
Well, I just have so much respect for that the complexity of that society and culture that like for my simple understanding of it to be a blanket statement, it's it's just not accurate. So
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally get what you're saying.
So the people in Japan, and this is related to Daiwa Zero, do you think there were people that were afraid to go experience something else that intrigued them because of that notion that work is life and you should spend most of your time working?
I could definitely see how certain people would feel that way. Um, a lot of my time was spent, working. So I didn't really get to meet that many, Japanese people and, get into nitty gritty conversations. I mean, for one, they don't really speak English that way. I mean, the vast majority of Japanese people did not speak English, at least to a degree that I could understand and get into, a deep conversation about like, or hey, are you afraid to go try something? So I mean, there were many
Food?
days where,
Please?
yeah, exactly. There were many days where I was the only white person I saw was in the mirror. Like I mean, they're a very homogenous society, and they don't. I mean, some people speak English, but it's really more along the lines of like, oh, you like this movie, and that's about as deep a conversations I got with a lot of people. Some people had, that had studied abroad in like Australia or had spent some time abroad were a little bit better communicating in English, but also the people that I was hanging around were all artists, and so we're probably a lot more willing to take those chances than the average person. So it's hard for me to say. I mean, whenever I would like go to like a party or whatnot, it would be something with or Yasuyuki would take me to it, and it like I met tattoo artists, which was you know that's not a big thing in Japan. They don't, so that was really
You get a
pushing out
tattoo over there?
the occupation. So a tattoo artist, a photographer, a potter, like a clay sculptor, people that were kind of on the artistic side of things, painters,
I see.
so their conversations with them might be a little bit skewed more towards them willing to take those chances and be different and really try and I don't know. It's just difficult for me to speak on that based on my experience. So
Yeah, I totally get that. So I kind of want to jump to your time in Boone, where you were training and learning, and you said you met the most interesting person you've ever met in your life. When was this? Was this pre or post your experience in Japan?
this was post. This was 2022, I think.
Gotcha.
2022. Yeah, summer. I went to go work for a company called Charleston Forge, Monday through Thursday. And they do like 10, 11-hour shifts, and that's how they do their 40 hours or, a little bit plus is like Monday through Thursday, 10 hours to 11 hours a day. And that's a lot of fabrication shops, a lot of metalworking shops. They kind of work on that timeline, longer weekend. And then if you want to add, overtime, you come in on Friday or Saturday or whatever. And they were doing all kinds of really cool handmade forged furniture. I learned a ton from them. Great facility, but it's a massive facility. I mean, they've got 100 people working in that factory, cranking out beautiful chairs. But I was working on one section. I was forging out the pieces. Then they would go to the welders who would weld them all together. Then they'd get grinded and sanded, and then they'd get painted and then packaged and then shipped. Like I was just in the forging side of it. So I got to do some cool stuff, but the real reason why I went up there was this guy named John Weiner who did a lot of the design work for that company as like a contractor. This guy is a metal artist, and he's up in Mountain City, Tennessee. He's got I want to say 26 acres on the side of a mountain that he's owned for the last 40 years, something like that. And as an artist, he's taken this land for the last 30 years and turned it into basically a paradise. It is one of the coolest places I've ever been in my life. He calls it the Laughing Crow Homestead. Is what it, but he's got it's basically the side of the mountain in Tennessee, and he has sculpted the land with excavators and different things over the years. He's got this beautiful log cabin that goes into the side of the mountain, it goes inside, so it's all heated correctly. You know what I mean? He's got a barn and that he does some woodworking in. That he also has sheep and horses, and there's ponds, and he's taken trees outside of on his property and planted them in specific places that he wants, and he's got a garden, and he's building a big forge, and he's got this his wife is a massage therapist. So he built her a cabin that has a sauna in it with a massage table, and then outside it goes
heaven.
down to a big koi pond that's surrounded by bamboo, and and apparently they dip in it every morning, do a little cold plunge in the wintertime in their koi pond, I guess probably right after the sauna that he built. You know what I mean? The guy
Dude, this place sounds awesome.
It's
sounds
amazing.
insane.
It's every guy's paradise.
Yeah.
I got horses. I got a cold plunge in a sauna. What do you want from me? Kind of thing. Grows a lot of his own food. Really, really interesting. He's such an interesting character. Really kind of a hippie kind of person. He's 65, but he acts like he's 40. But very interesting person. He came from he grew up in New York, and then I think when he was 18, he just dropped everything and became a traveling musician and street performer. And then he traveled throughout the United States. I'm probably butchering his story, and I'm sorry, John. But just super, super interesting guy. I mean, he's traveled the world doing blacksmithing. He's friends with a lot of Ukrainian and Russian blacksmiths, and he recently just helped these Ukrainian blacksmiths that he knows take asylum in the U.S. and they're out. I think if I understand, they're out doing great work out there in Boone, and but yeah, just super, super interesting guy. And he's living the dream. I mean, making awesome art, forging in his little paradise, and that, he built. So it's pretty cool.
What did you learn from him?
Heavenly.
What would you say are some of the big, before you met him and had this experience and post experience?
It's possible.
What in your perspective changed?
That's what I learned. It's possible. He's doing it.
Yeah, that's
he's
true.
doing it, and he did it. It's possible. You can do what you love, make cool art, and live in paradise. Really, I mean that's he's doing it. He really, really thinks outside the box, and I learned a lot about his creative process and how he thinks about putting things together. He's also a lot like what I learned about with the Japanese ways. He's really trying to make things right. There are no shortcuts. The more crazy and more complex he can go, he's willing to take it there. His brain is I don't know that I could match that kind of creativity that he's got, but I mean, who knows in the future? But just seeing that he could do it, was really like a big thing for me. Like, wow, like, I can do it too. If he can do it, I can do it. And so
Yeah.
I've kind of had that idea, like, I can, um, if I work hard, and I make the right decisions, and I, take some risks, I can end up there too. And it's not that much to ask for, really. If you put the time in, get, maybe you get an opportunity, you work hard, you get the next opportunity. Next thing you know, you're buying some land, and then, the rest is history, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
So is that? It kind of sounds like that's almost a little bit of a picture perfect kind of scenario for you to have something that similar to that, have your own land and have maybe a little shop out there and be able to just be in nature. And I
Yeah.
definitely think the creative process when you're out in nature or going for a walk, just being outside, your mind just is so much more free.
Yeah.
And it's something
crazy.
that I think just more people should do. Just like get out and Naval Ravikant, he's a billionaire. He founded this company called AngelList. He has this great philosophy which he calls choiceless awareness. So it's go out, go for a walk, even if it's in a city or in nature, whatever it is, and look at people, look at things, and try not to make an impression or judgment of them. Just recognize them for what they are, and then just see what thoughts continue to flow from that. And I think that was a cool philosophy because you don't know where, especially if you're talking to people, you don't know where someone's background is or where it's come from. Yet we all just we're started at people and like you said, like anyone can and everyone has this potential to do something. Just you put your mind to it, put the time in, and expand your time horizon long enough, and you can get it done.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that, Pat, because I have just started taking daily walks because I work from home. So, and honestly, you're right about the mind thing. I was like losing my mind being cooped up in an apartment every day. I like my apartment a lot. It was still making me lose my mind. It's hard to do. No wonder everyone went crazy in 2020.
Yeah.
Makes sense. But yeah, I'm in a city, but I'm taking walks around the city, and it is legitimately helping so much. Like it's so needed. So you're right. I'm going to try that exercise too of observing without having to developing an impression. That's a very interesting exercise that I'm going to start trying.
Yeah, great book, and I want to say it's free, potentially, or there's a good audiobook, but it's called The Almanac of Naval Ravikant for any listener or you guys that want to read it. And it's a really interesting format where you can kind of listen to a little bit of a day, because Tim Ferriss, he's the guy who wrote The 4 Hour Work Week and all that. He combined it into a book / interview. So it's not your traditional novel type book. It's like
a
this
Q&A.
point, little lesson, yeah, a little bit of Q&A. So it's a really cool read.
Tim Ferriss is a genius.
Yeah, that guy. Speaking of perceptions and how he views the world, that guy has something figured out.
Yeah, I agree.
And we're still working to get there.
Yeah, totally. Jack, do you live like downtown in Atlanta?
Yeah, I live like in Midtown.
Sweet.
Yeah, so there's like Midtown and downtown. Downtown's kind of George Aquarium, World of Coke,
Right.
CNN Center, not Millennium Park, Olympic Park, where the Olympics were in '96. And then Midtown is like, we're just north of it. There's like one little bridge that separates us, but it's also the city. I would say it's a little more housing, like a lot of high-rise apartment complexes, and some corporate giant buildings as well.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think, if I have the ability to work from home, it seems like, exploring would be something really cool to kind of start doing every day, like, going for a walk and seeing like, what's this place? I wonder, who, you go into a small store, you get into a bakery, you start going to that bakery, then you ask the question to the guy like, hey, like, how long have you owned this place? And then you can,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like I think that's the best part about living in a city is being able to explore and, and learn about the history of the places around you and stuff. So,
Yeah. What I love is that everything for me is walkable.
right.
Everything. Like any appointments I have, I can walk there. I got my haircut yesterday. I walked to the barber shop. And it's just kind of cool that if I have to go somewhere, I just get to like walk outside and go on a little journey. And now appointments are like mini journeys, that's probably my favorite part about living in the city.
Totally.
There is the safety aspect. I definitely, I can explore, but I can only explore so much.
Right.
And I should not explore late at night.
Come on, you can handle yourself, Jack.
I can understand. I mean, I live in downtown Charleston. I mean, Charleston's not as big of a city as Atlanta, but I understand, man.
Yeah,
Like,
no, totally.
Like there's a little neighborhood bar that's literally a block that down the road, and it's like in an old house. And if I want to go hang out, I can just go there, and there's a patio. It looks like somebody's back porch. I can just hang out. Like I don't have to drive somewhere or anything. Or same thing. I've gotten my hair cut walking down the street. To the barber shop and getting my hair cut. Like things like that are just so, because we come from Charlotte where it's this kind of for me, suburban Charlotte is a bit of a dystopia.
Yeah.
I mean,
Charlotte is a nice city. Like when you venture out and you're like, oh wow, not a lot of cities are built like this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Charlotte is very nice. Like there's certain parts of it that are amazing, but when you get into the endless housing, you have to drive everywhere. You can't walk to anything. I mean, nothing.
I couldn't walk to a single thing back home.
Yeah. I mean, you miss that side of exploring and walking around. At least in nature, you can go to a trail or go. You know what I mean? Like you can go walk around your area and go walk into nature. In the city, you can walk somewhere else. But when you're stuck in suburbia, whew, that to me is just, I don't like it.
Yeah.
I want to
It's
be one or
interesting.
the other.
I almost
I'm the
wonder if
same
I
way.
will eventually like it. Because just people change. Like, I'm designed for city life right now.
Right.
I can see myself getting sick of this in 5 years.
Sure. Sure.
Like, it's like sometimes like, okay, I need my own little world to a degree. I could see, I don't need that right now. I could see myself getting there eventually.
Yeah.
I don't know, though.
For sure.
I'm very much like, all right, I either want to be in where everything's happening or just like where nothing's happening.
Yeah, same. I'm the same way. Yeah.
Like I can't shoot a gun and hit someone for 50 miles.
Yeah, dude, I'm with you.
Okay, that I do agree with too. I think it's either in the mix of everything or isolation.
Yeah, totally. That's
With your family / squad / people
right.
in isolation together.
It'd be cool to have like a almost like a 20-acre property and just have a 10-bedroom house out there and just get all the. It's kind of like so. My parents have a place down in Charleston, and we'd always
nice.
go down there, and that's one of my favorite places in the world because it's out on a just middle. Not, I wouldn't say necessarily middle of nowhere, but there's very few people around.
Yeah.
And it's
Where is it?
Wanchama Island, so south of Johns Island.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I know exactly. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. That's awesome. Yeah, that's
so,
beautiful down there.
Yeah, I know. I hope it stays a little gem for long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every. Yeah, we'll see. I hope it does too.
I don't think Charleston will change much though, because Charleston's such a historic city.
Yeah.
Or town that, I mean, one, it takes a shitload of time in order to get anything done development wise out there, just because of the historic society.
Right.
And it just doesn't have the land infrastructure to be something like Charlotte, or definitely not Atlanta. So
Right.
I think it'll
Yeah.
maintain its little charm.
I don't think it'll turn into that, but I do think the population will continue to rise.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
it's skyrocketing, but it's spreading out because we don't. The city goes through, and the inhabitants in it are very conscious of what's being built and what's going on to the city. Like people are, when the mayor was being elected, I mean, it was like you would have thought it was the presidential election. I mean,
Wow.
oh yeah, like city government is huge here. People, within the government will listen to people, like people can sign petitions and there's a lot of boards and different things. Like I think in a lot of cities, if, the city council has a little meeting, like, and they, or town hall or whatever, a few people will show up. Some people aren't. No, like people go in droves. If people are mad about something, like there's the union pier thing that just recently happened, where there's this massive parking lot with a lot of BMWs, and people in the city have been complaining about it for so long. Like, hey, this is all this space, this could be used for maybe a park or for affordable housing and all these other things. Like this is just ridiculous that there's this massive parking lot taking up a third of downtown, And so people, the city's listened, and so they've decided that they're going to take that area back and they're going to, do something with it. And they hired this, group from LA to come in and design what they wanted and everything. And, the residents of Charleston looked at it and were like, this is dog shit. We do not accept this. This is not, this is not okay for me.
Get out.
Yeah, and they had a massive uproar, and they basically told that company to go back to the drawing board, and then they lost the whole contract in the end. So people are very, very conscious about what goes on in the city, and a part of living here is accepting that culture of the history and quality and kind of just the little nitty gritty cultural things. They're taken very, very seriously here, which I love. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
That is really cool. I wouldn't know where to start in Atlanta for any of our city politics at all. I don't even. It's downtown, but like I couldn't walk to city council right now or like drive to it without a map. Would have no idea.
Yeah. I mean, people take it seriously, so which is so refreshing. Everybody's there. National politics. Who's going to the Senate? Who's going to the presidency and all this other stuff? And it's like the things that happen around you are so much more important in daily
that's
life.
So true.
Than anything. And so, anyways.
Yeah, your local on the local level, politics will affect your daily life more than anything.
Absolutely.
At least to a degree. All right, so, dude, tell us about your job that you just got / are starting.
Oh, okay. So I've been working like 3 to 4 days a week in between like classes and other things on restoring antique furniture. So recently we just worked on a probably close to priceless mirror that was George II hand carved gilded piece that a painter took off the wall and dropped. And so this very fragile 250-year-old mirror broke in half. And so we had to, go back and, glue everything correctly, put filler in places, but you don't want to do too much, because you don't want to jeopardize the integrity of the piece, re-gild everything with 24 karat gold, and then antique it and all the rest of it. So there's that. I have been doing a lot of finishing work in this. It's called French polishing, which is taking a shellac, which is it's basically the traditional way that the English did it. I don't know why it's called French polishing, but it's a byproduct of like a beetle from India, and it's a
Wait,
natural
like
finish.
beetle as in the car?
No, like a
Or
beetle, like a bug,
Like a bug, Patrick.
oh,
byproduct of a bug. Yeah, yeah, no, from
so
India.
it's like a little decorative piece.
No. So it's a coating on like a finish on metal. I mean, not metal. On wood.
Oh, interesting.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
So
So
I don't know these answers
sorry,
either. I'm just giving
I
Patrick
sometimes
shit.
forget. I start throwing out
well,
jargon.
I mean,
Like,
I'm curious. Like, I mean that
No, that's
seems
really
like
cool.
so niche. I mean, I wouldn't have anywhere to start, but I mean, these are the type of things that I find fascinating. Like, I wouldn't even know. I didn't even know that existed. So, like, how do you take that, or who teaches you that, or introduce you? Like, oh, I saw this beetle thing from India, and that's what we need to use in order to do this
Yeah.
finishing work.
dude, I don't know. I don't know. Who figured
You
out
might
how to
not
milk
know.
a cow and drink it? You know what I mean? Like, who thought that was a good idea? You know what I mean? I don't
Yeah,
know.
it just
Who let goat milk ferment and decided like, ooh, cheese, yummy. You know what I mean?
Well,
I don't know.
true. Well, it's more like how did you, or what mentor taught you like this is what we have to do to that, or is that something you guys learn in school, or is it more like you have to, if you want to know, you got to go and do that.
So it's mixed with both. At my school, it's a liberal arts college, so it's not it's not just trade work. I mean, I've taken material science class. I've taken two material science classes. I've taken a lot of design. I've taken philosophy and craft. I've taken um, preservation and preservation law and different things like classes that you have to take at this school where you learn all kinds of things. And one of the things is, you know, different kinds of finishes on your wood on wood. There's different kinds of burnishes and synthetic and natural, water based, oil based, different kinds of things that you'll have to deal with whether some things are toxic, some things are not. So what to when you should be wearing a respirator, when the proper PPE for certain things. So that's a small side of the vast majority of the material science that we learned. So there's a side of that. I mean, as working with wood, working with steel, working with clay and whatever else. You learn all different kinds of jargon for various finishes and things like that. Just but yeah, so that, I also, I took architectural history, so kind of have to understand, what styles were from different eras of history and things like that. So I got a little bit of that, I had a decent, platform to stand on. But the guy that I'm working for, he's retired, but he used to have a massive shop in downtown Charleston on King Street. He employed probably 20 guys. And he did a lot of work for like the Nathaniel Russell House, which, if you don't know, is a big historic mansion museum that has a lot of like really cool furniture in it. And so he did a lot of like period correct restoration for the pieces
cool.
in there. And he learned in Manhattan. So he worked for a few different shops that were very prestigious for antiques, restoring antiques and then selling antiques, because there's a massive market just like art and whatever else, things appreciate and depreciate in value. And so there's that whole world, and so he has been in that world since he was my age, and he's 70 now.
Wow,
So
that's wild.
yeah, so he's a master, and I get to
That's pretty cool.
go in there and learn a little bit of stuff from him and help him out, and so yeah.
That's awesome. So, looking now like, down the road 5-10 years, where do you want to take this?
Specifically the woodworking, the antique stuff.
the metalworking, what's kind of that thing, that goal for you that's like, this is my dream kind of thing?
Well, the correct answer is I have no fucking clue.
Yep.
That's a good answer.
yeah.
That's a great answer.
I have ideas and, different dreams, sometimes you go to sleep and wake up, you're like, oh, that'd be cool, I don't know. I think a lot of things that I'm focused on right now is setting myself up for the future. So say if an opportunity comes along, I have the ability to take that risk and say, all right, let's go for it.
Yeah, totally.
So there's that. But I would say, the general plan is really focusing in on the whole forging and artistic side of things, specifically metal. Kind of have an understanding of other things. Like I wanted to know how to, do basic wood stuff, basic clay and stone and all the rest of it. I want electrical, all that kind of thing. Get a basic understanding of a lot of different trades, but really hone in my skills with forging and design and art, sculpture, and so really focus on that and go that direction. I think a lot of people in other countries, especially in Europe, when it comes to these kind of high skilled trades, they do like the whole apprenticeship program. So they'll do like 10 years of working under a master before they go out on, or maybe not 10 years, but maybe I think it's like 4 years, 4 or 5. It depends on the country. But they do a certain amount of time with the master, working under them. And then when they get to a certain skill level, they'll become a journeyman. And then they'll go and work for various shops, kind of traveling. Somebody's got this job, they hear about it, they go and work and do a job, and then when that job's finished, they go to the next place. And then they learn from a lot of different places, traveling, and gain a lot of knowledge. And then when they feel like they've learned enough, of how other people run their business, they'll find a spot that doesn't have any work or needs work, or somebody's retiring, and they'll take, buy the business from them and start their own business. And when they've done that enough, they start hiring employees themselves. And, so there's that whole track. I mean, people have been doing that for, hundreds of, if not 1,000 years, in Europe. So there's that side that I maybe do somewhat of an American version of that. I'm going to college, which I guess would be my apprenticeship side of things. And then, hopefully work for some good shops and take a chance, start my own business and, do it for myself and maybe hire some people in the future. I don't know. That's long term, but I'm keeping it vague,
totally.
So
To be determined.
Absolutely. I think that's the right way to go for it. Completely. I'm excited. Let's start wrapping up. So real quickly, Vaughan, tell us about your Instagram account, Vaughan.forge, I saw recently. What are you doing over there?
Just basic process photos, kind of using it as a bit of a portfolio, so you can kind of come back on. I try to post, videos of interesting things I may be doing. Some people might see it as just a goofball whacking on some metal, and other people might, learn stuff from it. Who knows? But
I thought it was awesome. I think anyone listening to the podcast should go check some of it out because you're doing some really cool stuff.
Thank you very much.
It's one thing to talk about it, but to actually see it, you're like, you're making shit.
Yeah.
He's whacking on metal.
I've got a table in the works that I'm pretty excited about. It's taken me, on and off, working on it in my spare time. Almost a year now, with,
Holy
design and different pieces. I've got 24 dragons that are all forged out into tapers that are doing this whole thing. It's a big coffee table, but it's going to be ridiculously heavy, not practical. It's kind of more of a sculpture than anything. But each head is fire welded and has a different face, and I'm, all carved out, hand carved. No electric welding really, all traditional forging techniques. So hopefully I can get that done pretty soon. I'm wrapping it up. I've been posting a little bit about it, but not too much. I don't want to
The big reveal.
yeah.
Dude, it sounds sick.
It sounds really cool.
A dragon table?
Yeah,
And they're each custom. That's sick.
yeah, each one's got a little personality to it. So
That's awesome. I can't wait to see that. You'll have to keep us
That's
updated
super
on
cool.
that. That would be really cool.
follow
Yeah.
Vaughan.forge if you're interested.
Well, man, do you have one message to kind of leave everyone with or wrap everything up, kind of encompassing?
Whatever you
how
say
you-
next defines you, Vaughn.
Yeah, exactly. I
No
would
pressure.
say that, for me, finding blacksmithing was taking two common themes that I've done in my entire life. I've done sports and worked out and have been very physical since I was a young child, starting with gymnastics and going through, football at Charlotte Catholic, and helping along with, obviously great talent and a great team, win 2 state championships, and the discipline of that physicality, mixed with the art that I've also done my entire life, being scratching that creative itch and pushing myself creatively, mixing those two and then working really hard at it has been incredibly fulfilling for me. So my message would be, do some soul searching, figure out, what, if you're struggling with, what you want to do with your life, do some soul searching, figure out, what do you like doing? What has been a common theme throughout your entire life? Figure out what that is, and figure out how you can apply that to the world around you and hopefully make some money at it and take a chance and go for it. Because, the earlier you start, the more time you have to get good at it and hopefully, do well for yourself in life. You can find it out at 40 or you can find it out now, or 50 or 60, So anyways, I guess that's my
Yeah.
final thought.
Don't wait to start
I
on
love
something
it.
you always wanted to do.
That's it.
Yep.
Yeah, go for it.
Just
Fuck
do
around
it.
and find out. You might
Yeah,
surprise yourself.
Hell yeah.
If you want to know, you got to go.
Oh, absolutely.
I love it. Well, man, this is awesome.
Yeah,
we
seriously.
have loved hearing this just story of from when we past knew you and past saw you and where you are now and the stuff you've learned and the stuff you're working on. So we're rooting for you, and we'll definitely keep following along with the journey.
And I'm rooting for you guys too. I think, like I said, this whole podcast thing is incredibly inspiring, and keep chasing your dreams, fellas.
Oh, well, thanks, man. And thanks for coming on. It was so great to have you. It was super cool. I'm really excited for this to air. Let's close it out. Everyone, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for checking out Vaughan and hearing his story. You can follow him at Vaughan.forge on Instagram if you guys want to kind of actually see the things that we've been talking about and what Vaughn's been working on. It's super cool. I'd highly recommend checking it out. We'd also always love and appreciate any feedback from you guys. We're going to start doing more guest things like this. Vaughn is one of our first. You're our guinea pig, Vaughan, and you were a fantastic one at that.
Awesome. Right
and
behind
as
Clayton.
usual-
Yeah, we must give Clayton all
That's
the
right.
praise.
Yeah, that's true.
Clayton
That's
all the
true.
praise.
Clayton came in. He killed it.
Clayton is king.
And yeah, as usual, if you guys are enjoying the podcast, feel free to give us a 5-star rating on wherever you're listening from. Feel free to comment. Feel free to leave us suggestions. Feel free to share the podcast with other people if you think they'd enjoy it as well. And seriously, thank you guys so much for listening as always. We love you to death, and we'll see you next week.
Peace.